All right, we're going to do part 3 of lesson 5. We're going to do some layer effects. All right, so we're going to add a gradient above the paper texture. So let's see if we can figure this whole thing out. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to go to our layers panel, click on the paper texture, and we're going to create a new layer on top of it. And then we're going to have to come over here and see if we can find the gradient tool. And it happens to be under this little paint bucket here. We're going to go to the gradient tool. Now, we can like choose a preset gradient if we want. So let's if we would go like this, we could drag that gradient on. But we're not going to do that. We're going to select a color and do the color of our choice. But what we're going to do is we are going to pick kind of the start thing we want. We can do a gradient like that. We can do a gradient that looks like this. There's all sorts of gradients. Anyway, we're going to start here. So I'm going to click on that thing, and you can see that I can adjust how I'm going to do this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sort of color that I like. So I'm going to drag this over here. I'm going to come over here. So okay, let's keep looking here. So this particular one uses only grayscale, so I can't use that. So I'm going to try something that has color in it. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, so we'll double click on this. And so no, I don't want that one. I want something like this. So foreground to transparent. Okay, so here we click here, we can come over here, we can pick our color that we want. Okay, so you can choose whatever color you want. I'm going to choose a dark green. And then we're going to drag this over to make it last longer like that. And then, probably something like that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. Okay, so now I want to make sure I'm in the right layer. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to create a gradient. And then I'm going to call this gradient. And then I'm going to mess around with the transparency, the opacity, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to change this to multiply. Okay, so you can see how it kind of darkens the color underneath it. Okay, that looks nice. And then we'll change the opacity to 75% or whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with it. You can change that to whatever you want. So let's try something different. So you can see we can turn that on and off. The other thing you could do on this gradient is you could, if you want to, instead of dragging from this way down, you could go from this way up, and that changes it all together. So you can keep doing it. You're adding gradient on top of gradient. But anyway, so you can make this part dark. So if you turn everything off, you can kind of see that's kind of what the gradient actually does. So I can select everything. I can clear this all out, and I can try again. So I can try again. So go to my gradient layer. Let's go select, deselect. I can click and drag. No, not that. Let's go. I can go back to my gradient, and I can drag from the bottom up. And you can see this is the dark part, and that's not. Anyway, so make that how you like it. So we've created a gradient, and now let's go to the next one. We're going to add text. So we're going to add the word collage to it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to, let's turn everything back on. Let's kind of get everything back how it's supposed to look. Okay, so we're going to put some text right here. So we're going to click right here. We're going to make a new layer, and we're going to add some text. So we're going to do the horizontal text, and I'm going to choose the font Adobe Garamond. I'll make it italicized, and I don't know what size I want it yet, but I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type in collage. Okay, and then I'm going to move it where I want it. I like the size. That's about right. I'll move it to like right there. Okay, and so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an effect to it. So let's add a drop shadow to it so we want to be able to see what we're doing. So we'll add a drop shadow. We're going to do maybe a bevel and emboss. Okay, you can see what that's doing to it already. Let's go back to the drop shadow. Let's make the size. You can see the size. I can change the size of and the spread of the drop shadow, something like that looks good. And then we can try different things. A color overlay, and so we can pick the color that we want for the color overlay. So let's go to color overlay, and we click on this, and we can choose, let's choose kind of a color like this, and click OK, and let's go back and see it. So anyway, you can do whatever you want with it. So do at least 3: drop shadow, bevel and emboss, cover and relay. And by the way, so you can see what these things do to it. Okay, so that makes it look nice. So do some text effects like that. Okay, so now we're going to add the 3 to it. So we want to, let's take a look at our final, kind of like our final version. Let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, so we want to add a big 3 here. You can see it's kind of see-through. You can see that it's beveled, embossed, so on and so forth. So I want you to add that. You can make it look how you want. Let's see if we can figure out how to do it. So the first step is going to be to add a new layer. We're going to go to the type. This is probably going to be like 255 or bigger. Okay, so you click, type in the letter, then 3, kind of move it to where you want it. And again, add the effect, place it kind of where you want it, but add the effect that you want. So we'll go to effect. We'll start off with drop shadow. And I think maybe do some of the same thing, bevel and emboss for sure. We might on bevel and emboss we might make it a little deeper. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, maybe something more like that. I kind of like that. And then on this particular one, I think we're going to go to the layer. So that 3. Oh, I have to click OK. And so then I have to go to the layer, and then let's change the opacity a little bit. Make it blend in nice. Okay, I like something like probably right there. And if you want to, you can play around with the blending mode, but probably just normal is going to be fine. I actually kind of like that one, divide. But anyway, change it to how you like. Okay, so oh yeah, so we already added the drop shadow to the letter. Oh, we're going to alt drag the copy of this layer effect to the photo layer and to the shell layer. Okay, so let's play around with that idea. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the layers panel. Okay, so if you look up here, here's the 3 layer, and then here's the effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt to copy it. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to press Alt, and I'm going to grab it down, drag it down to the shell. Oh, it's supposed to copy it. There we go. Alt drag down to the shell, and then we're going to Alt drag it to the letter. Okay, so let's take a look and see what this is doing. So if we click on the shell, there it is. So I don't really want the bevel and emboss, so I'm going to get rid of that, but I do like the drop shadow. And then the same thing, let's look at the photo. Oh, I put it on the letter. Let's put it on the photo. Let's drag this up to the photo. Okay, so on the photo, same thing. I don't really like the bevel and emboss, but I like the drop shadows just fine. So let's do that. So anyway, so what we're showing you here is that you can duplicate effects to different layers. And that's it for this part.